my name's Nancy Knauf, and I'm here today at NKU, Northern Kentucky University, at the School of the Arts. And this is an important place to me because my father was the founding chairman of the music department. And I later came to the school to get a music degree. Now, my father was working full-time for Fort Thomas Public Schools as their music director and choral director at the time that he was also working with Nancy Martin, who was a voice teacher at the time, and they started this department, the music department, when it was Northern Kentucky State College, and their first office was a trailer. When my father finished his career in Fort Thomas, he came to NKU full-time as the music department chair, and then later he moved to the role of vice president of university affairs. In addition to being a great music educator, he was also a great promoter, and that took him in new directions in his career. So at NKU, when he passed away in 2006, my mother and I came out for a concert. The Northern Kentucky Chorus dedicated their spring concert that year in his memory, and they performed the Fare Requiem, which was a very special event. They also created a scholarship in his name for a male vocalist, and there was a brick that was also installed at the university, and it says Robert Knauf, thanks for the memories. It's part of the collection, and you'll see it there too. So, you know, NKU has been a really important part of my father's story, but there's a lot more to that story, and I'd like to go back to the library and start with his beginnings. Hi, Nancy Knauf here. I'm now in the archives at the Kenton County Public Library. I'm going to show you a few things that are in the Robert Knauf collection. Now, my father was born in Covington, Kentucky. His parents were William and Annabelle Knauf, and there's a picture here of them on their wedding day up here. There's also a great picture of my dad in a tuxedo. So he was one of three boys. He and his brother Howard both played the piano, but my dad became quite the vocalist. His brother Jim also was a good singer, but the one who really pursued performance was my father. And he had a career as a boy soprano. He even had a name, a stage name of Bobby Breen. Here's another great picture of him with his accordion. So he played both the accordion and also the piano. And I have some wonderful articles in here. He was a winner in the WCKY talent contest. There's little newspaper clippings here about him singing in a review. And there's a lot of this type thing in the collection. So like I mentioned, he had two brothers, and they all grew up in Covington. My grandfather, William, was the Kenton County jailer, and his wife, Annabelle, was actually the cook at the jail, and we would go visit them there. So I have some really interesting memories of that growing up. Now, the boys attended John G. Carlisle Elementary, and they also went to Holmes High School. And that's where my father met my mother. She was a daughter of Glenn O'Swing. Her name was Marguerite. Everyone called her Maggie. She actually was quite a good pianist. My dad said that she played a movement of a Tchaikovsky symphony in high school that really impressed him. They also were the senior leads in the senior play, and I have the actual program from 1942 of Stage Door that they both performed in, and there's a really great picture of them on the stage, which I thought was really sweet that they kept this, and also some other pictures from the play that are all part of that. Now, my dad, after high school, at some point he was at UC studying, but then he had to enlist actually he was in the Air Force. So there's a picture of him in the Air Force in the collection, and wouldn't you know, I set it aside. Here it is. And my mother tells the tale that while he was still in service, that he caught a train from Texas back to Covington, Kentucky, and he wrote a song that he used to propose to her, and he won the money to buy her engagement ring in a poker game. Great story. So they got married. I love this. This just a picture of them cutting the cake. And there's actually, you know, I've got the invitation, as well as here's just even a napkin with their names on it from their wedding date, which was December 27th, 1947. And then this picture, so, you know, after the wedding, they dressed for the honeymoon. So that's what they were wearing. And then this really fantastic shot of them coming out of the church with the rice being thrown. And this is my great aunt. I recognize her in the photo. Really, really sweet. Yeah, so, and more pictures of that. There was even an article, you know, my dad's dad was a public figure, and my mom's dad was superintendent of schools. So they were kind of in the news. So there was even a news story, Miss Swing is bride and lovely rites, and it describes the wedding and everything that was in the newspaper. And this is my dad's mom here, all dressed up in a mink jacket and everything. Really fun. Now they had 4 children. I was the youngest. I don't have a lot of pictures of the family in the collection, but I have added a few. And this was really sweet. This is a picture when they had their first 2 children, where they had a formal portrait of my brother Bill and my sister Linda. And then, you know how it is with families, they quit paying for professional photographers as they have more kids. But this is also a great picture, which has all 4 children in it later when they lived in Fort Thomas, and this was in our backyard. And I'm the youngest one in this shot. Now, the 3rd child in our family, actually Louise, was born with Down syndrome. So my parents were also very active in working with other parents to get services for people with special needs, and specifically getting educational resources. And my dad was the first school music teacher to teach the students in Fort Thomas that were enrolled in the special education classes. Really special. Now, from there, he went back to school, of course, after they got married, and he went to UC and he got his music degree. During the summers, he'd also go to UK, which is where he finished his master's degree. And then he also did some advanced studies at Boston University. A lot of people remember my dad because he was such an active choral director. He was at Fort Thomas Public Schools as their music director, so he taught all grades initially, but he really developed a big choral program, you know, for that middle school and high school age. And they performed with the symphony. He collaborated with 2 of the symphony conductors that I know of for sure. There's an article here. Sorry, as I move that. You know, do you know Robert Knauf, music leader at Highlands? And it talks about, you know, what he was accomplishing. This is actually a picture of the symphony in the Highlands gym with a chorus of like 400 singers. They were all high school students. And then here's another article, Highlands Chorus Symphony win the race. Highlands Choral Program Tuesday. It was in the news. It was a big program. So the collaborations included actually doing work and programs at Music Hall. I've got here, sorry, as I flip through, there's a lot here. Here is my dad and my mother. She was an accompanist for him, and Thor Johnson, who was the symphony conductor at the time, and they're preparing for a performance at Music Hall. Another news article that shows 4 young musicians have major roles in the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. This was the first pop concert of the season. Here's a letter from Craig Hutchinson from the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. At the time, Thor Johnson, the music director, just saying how much they appreciated the excellent contribution that your fine group of boys and girls made at this event. So they sang in that Pops concert. And I have a picture of the students. I have a couple of big ones here. Sorry, this one is actually May Festival. He was also the May Festival director too. So it was not uncommon for the high school students to be on this stage, as well as him directing adult choirs. And this is an actual program from the Cincinnati May Festival, Bach B minor Mass, and the Giancarlo Menotti's The Death of the Bishop of Brinzi. I love these. Take a look. It was separated and put here in the album. So those are from the May Festival. And then there was a big article in the paper that showed At Home with the May Festival choral director, that shows the family and him in his home office preparing for the May Festival. So he was in a letter here, a signed photograph from Thor Johnson to my father. Really great stuff. So his career, he went from doing all these different choruses, of course, out to NKU and directing their chorus. He was friends with Eric Kunzel, who a lot of people know is the Pops director. And they collaborated when my dad passed away in 2006. I was singing for the May Festival, and Eric Kunzel actually sent me a lovely email, you know, with some really wonderful comments about his relationship with my dad and what a great musician he was and what a fun personality he was. And that's in the collection. There's a picture of pop concert rehearsal. So this is again at Highlands, and that's my dad, and that's Eric. And then there's another picture of them together also in the collection. Really great stuff. So my mom did a good job, and probably my grandmother too, in putting all this together. So he stayed at NKU. That's where he, you know, he finished his career. He was also really active in the community as a volunteer. So he was the volunteer director of the Spiral Springs Festival, which if you, those of you who remember that, it was a festival that led up to the Jim Beam Stakes, which was a Kentucky Derby prep race that was run at Turfway Park. And he just met tons of celebrities. And as a family member, I did too. So there's pictures of him here with Bob Hope and Tim Conway and, you know, local politicians and all sorts of dignitaries that came to that race. And when here's even a signed card from Willie Shoemaker. Some really great stuff from that period of time. So when he retired, it was a big deal. It was in the news, and they had a wonderful retirement party for him at the Drawbridge Inn, and all of us family members participated in that too. The high school, the class of I'm going to find it here, 1955, I think, in my big stack. Yeah, the class of 1955 at Highlands High School commissioned an original piece of work for him. So I mentioned earlier that we attended the Fare Requiem at NKU, but we also attended this performance at Highlands High School. So they had an original work called The Voice of the Rain performed for him in memory too. So, and this summer, which will be June of 2024, the Northern Kentucky Legends Music Hall of Fame will honor Robert Knauf as an inductee. So that's right around the corner, and really excited that he's getting that recognition. There are many, many people in the greater Cincinnati area, Northern Kentucky, that sang for my father and have wonderful memories. I wish I had $1 for every one of them who came up and introduced themselves to me and told me a Bob Knauf story. It's been really special to be his daughter. And I hope you all will spend some time looking at the collection. I've shared a lot, but there's a lot more in there and who knows, you might be in one of the pictures.